Welcome to Straight Up Dog Talk, the podcast where pet parents, pet guardians, and pet professionals come together to dive into real issues in dog parenting. From controversial training methods to sensitive health topics, we're getting raw and real about what it means to care for our canine companions. Join us every Wednesday for unfiltered conversations, expert insights, and personal stories that will make you laugh, cry, and grow as a pet parent. No topic is off limits and no question goes unanswered. You won't get one perspective here. You'll get them all because every dog is different and every human is too. You can follow along on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Straight Up Dog Talk or by visiting www.straightupdogtalk.com. Tune in from any of your favorite podcast platforms. Straight Up Dog Talk. I'm Em and we're back again this week, but we have two amazing guests this week instead of just one. This week we have Dr. Benson and Courtney from Paws into Grace. How are you ladies doing today?
Good.
We're great. Thanks for having us.
Yes, absolutely. This is one of the more sensitive topics to talk about. We have had a couple of episodes where we have talked about pet loss. We've had a pet loss counselor on, and we've had a couple of people come on and talk about their pet losses, but we haven't actually had a conversation about what it takes to go into a euthanasia, the process after the euthanasia, all of the things. So what I would like to do today is talk about what Paws into Grace is, how it came to be, the services that you provide for people, and why you do what you do. I will let you guys each introduce yourselves and then we can kind of jump in.
I'm Dr. Benson and I started Paws into Grace maybe about 15 years ago. And initially I was working in emergency and the euthanasia, how we went about it just seemed so wrong. And I actually dreaded those appointments because the dog or the cat, they were scared. Everything was unfamiliar. It was chaotic. The environment was sterile. It just seemed like the wrong goodbye for the animal. So that's how it started, was this idea that this is really an intimate experience and that's how it should be, is at home. The dog or cat, they shouldn't be stressed out. It shouldn't be with smells of alcohol and cold tables and all of that. It should be under a tree or it should be by the fire. Families should have that intimate moment to say goodbye. And that just seemed to be a better experience for the patient and the families. It was originally very patient-centered. And then what I didn't really think about or realize, and what inspired me so much, was how was such a completely different experience for families. And suddenly the dog, they would come to greet me like I was a friend and there was no stress. They weren't scared. And it was just a more gentle goodbye for the families. And it just changed completely how they were going through death.
I was a vet tech for about 10 years. I agree with you. I completely understand how sterile and also how cold and difficult it can be to be in a treatment room with someone. I even worked for a doctor who did not allow us to cry. If the patients were crying and we started to cry as the tech, she would kick us out of the room.
Wow.
Yeah, it was awful. We really had to learn to control our emotions because somebody has to be in there with the veterinarian. And it was a really, really difficult thing. The first day of my career as a veterinary technician, we euthanized 3 animals. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And it was definitely not something that I enjoyed. And I wish that we had a service like yours in my local community, because I think that it's just a really, really beautiful thing that you can provide for people. And then we have Courtney. Why don't you tell us how you are involved?
Absolutely. I've known Dr. Benson for almost 15 years now, and we started working together in 2020. I have a background in marketing, communications, public relations, definitely nothing from the veterinary world. And so I had come on just to help with some social media, marketing, different things, and then very quickly realized like what a beautiful opportunity this is to help families. Dr. Benson really laid the foundation for having this beautiful goodbye that I think everybody wants. And as I started working the area, I saw where we really needed growth was we were partnered with other crematories at the time. Once the euthanasia took place, we would partner with them for the cremation part. And that's where I saw the opportunity pretty immediately that if we want to offer families truly the level of service that she's dreamed about, we've got to do the cremation ourselves as well. We had not that many conversations before we actually went and leased a building and bought equipment and opened our own crematory. That has been really, really amazing. First of all, just in providing jobs in our local community, but also the primary goal for us is we want every single pet that comes into our company to be handled like they were our own. And so when we have one of our doctors going to the appointment and then they're coming back to a crematory that's full of our employees that we've trained on how to respect, it really is sacred work. And we're able to make sure that that is carried out throughout the entire process.
I really like the language that you guys are using. You can tell how much intent and how much care and how much love is put into this because it is such a hard experience. It is such a hard decision to make. So having those gentle steps to lead people up to this is really, really important. Where are you guys located?
We're in San Diego as far as our cremation office, but as far as the home euthanasia and the services that we offer, we're from Orange County all the way down to the border of Southern California near Mexico.
We have a lot of listeners in that area, so that's really, really good to know. It's also really good to be able to point people in the direction of a service always, especially something like this. Why don't you talk a little bit about the process? How does this work? When someone calls you, what are the steps that you walk them through to get them to their beautiful goodbye?
We have a team of remote receptionists that are available 7 days a week. They're our employees. Most of them are San Diego based, so we have had a couple that have migrated across the country with this remote role. But you're speaking with someone who is truly an expert in client care and has talked with hundreds, if not thousands of people in every single stage of this loss. We have people that call that maybe they've just gotten a diagnosis and their pet is going to be going through treatment and they want to know what to expect. Or sometimes we have people that today's the day. So we have a team of client care specialists that are honestly the most empathetic people you will ever meet because they are speaking all day, every day with people that are going through this tremendous, tremendous loss. A lot of what happens on the phone is discussing what's going on with their pet. We do terminal euthanasias. We don't do convenience euthanasias. So having that conversation and making sure that this truly is the time, and then giving them expectations for what the appointment looks like. We don't want people to be surprised in the appointment. It's really important for them to know that there's going to be a sedation injection. It's like you and I getting a flu shot. There is a quick poke with that. And the veterinarians are wonderful about walking through that in the appointment. But we do have a lot of conversations about what the appointment looks like. And I think the biggest conversations we have are, is it time? How do I know it's time? And having a lot of those quality of life discussions that happen on the phone. A lot of people, just because their vet has said, it's time, may not emotionally be ready for that. A lot of times our team is having those in-depth discussions to say, if you think about 10 things your dog loved to do in their prime, how many can they do now? If you think about quality of days for your cat, well, how many good days versus bad days? Our team definitely tries to take the time to talk through those things because when we have a doctor come to your home, we want you to be confident and that this is the kind thing to do. No one's ever ready to do it. It never feels good, but it is a kindness. So it's important for our clients to be at that point that by the time the doctor gets there, and I think that the reception team takes a lot of time to make sure that our clients are confident in what's going to happen to the appointment. And yes, this is the right time.
After you walk them through all of that and they get to the point then where they're like, okay, this is a kindness. This is the right decision. I think that maybe if we could do it in 3 days, then what happens from there?
We'll schedule out the appointment. There's a number of details that we would need to book that. But from there, once the appointment is booked, the doctor will get a confirmation and the doctor will come on that day. We typically see people booking, I would say, within a week, but we often have same day. Sometimes even those week appointments, that day comes and they're not ready, or inexplicably the dog that's been immobile is now running around the house happily. And sometimes we have a delay, and that's okay. We really try to follow what our pets are telling us and what our humans need. So we follow that guideline as best we can with, what the situation presents us.
And is there a time frame, or do you feel the situation out as it goes once the doctor is there and the final decision has been made? What does that usually look like? That's probably more for you, Dr. Benson.
So you're asking, what is the appointment like?
Yeah, once they've made the final decision and they're starting to say their goodbyes and they've picked the location, they want to do it on the back deck because that's where the dog likes to sun every day. And everybody's out there and you're going to go through the process. And I know personally what a euthanasia is like because I've experienced many of them, but I'm sure you walk them through again. But what does it look like time-wise? Because I know people get edgy and they get iffy and then things stall out a little bit. And you give that injection where we're now sedated, but we're not quite ready for that final injection. What does that look like in that moment?
I think it really is individualized. I never really know how exactly an appointment is going to go, because I really have to see the dynamics of the family. I have to see how stable the dog is. It depends on what the underlying disease process is. It depends on the dog or cat's personality. There are just so many factors. So I can't really plan out an appointment. I have a general process where when I'm there, I like to meet the pet first because I want to make sure that the pet feels comfortable with me, or if they have anxiety with people they don't know, then I wouldn't necessarily do that part. But that's probably one of the most important steps, I think, is just making sure that the pet does feel comfortable with me and I'm not adding stress. And then another important component is going to be communication with the family so that they understand what's going to happen and they don't have surprises. So we're going to do a little bit of paperwork here, but then I'm going to give this injection that helps them fall asleep first. And that's generally about 5 to 10 minutes before they fall asleep with that medication. If there's underlying disease like heart disease or lung disease or something like that, that can change what happens during the appointment. There may be faster breathing and how I'm going to handle that, how I'm going to respond. So trying to coach them through, because if you know what to expect, then a lot of that stress is removed from the appointment. We want everything to be as calm as possible, so that's part of it. And then once they're asleep, they have time. Another really important part of our process is that I don't actually want to be a big presence in the appointment. That's an intimate experience for the family of saying goodbye, and I don't want to alter that experience as much as possible. I think all of our vets, we try to observe, but not have active participation as much as possible. I will be watching the pet from another room or from a little bit of a distance as much as possible, although I do need to be monitoring the pet throughout the process. But I want this to be an intimate experience for the family that's just between the family and the pet as much as possible. And if I need to intervene medically, I will, but trying to honor that as much as possible. So that they, in the end, they don't really remember me, but instead they're remembering saying goodbye and what they did with the pet, and that they gave it treats, and that they spoiled it, and that they were hugging it, or maybe kids were drawing pictures. That's what I want that experience to be for a family, instead of remembering pause into grace. And that, I think, is the ultimate success if we can achieve that, and then giving them as much time as possible alone afterwards as well. Also giving them control so that they come to us and they tell us when they're ready for us to take the pet afterwards. I think if you can give families expectations, or they know what to expect, and then if you can give them some control and you can give them intimacy, then you can change this entire experience for them. That's what we're trying to give families.
That's exactly what I was looking for. I love that, because one of the hardest parts about saying goodbye at a veterinary office is that you feel rushed. You feel like you're taking up space. You feel like you're in this little room and you're confined, and there's other people that are coming in and out, and maybe your appointment wasn't planned and you're already having anxiety because you have to let your pet go on top of this. And it just feels so bad in so many ways. And I think that being able to have a service like yours, where they're given the instruction, the guidance, the space, and the time, and they're given in the very last moments to say goodbye, is such a beautiful thing that you can give to people. I really love what you're doing.
I think what the most traumatic about death, besides the fact that you have to say goodbye, is that you don't have any control. So if we can give owners a little bit of the control back, and they can make the experience on their own terms, and they have the privacy and the intimacy at that time, then we're really changing death for families.
You are. There's such a stigma around death, right? It's such a negative feeling when it comes to death. But like you said, it is actually a kindness. Courtney said that. It's a kindness where you're actually giving people some confidence in their choice, making them feel okay about their choice. The support that you're giving them behind that is, I think, really important, because making the decision is the hardest part about the whole thing. And having somebody come in and walk you through the process and then validate that and say, you know what, this is a kindness, this is the right thing to do. And you are making the decision that is best for your pet. And now you can help them move on into the next stage. And I think that changes the experience completely, because you don't have that strict regimen, rushed feeling. You said that you give them time afterwards, which is also a beautiful thing, because then you give them time to say goodbye after they have passed. And then I'm guessing that you remove the body then if they decide to go through cremation with you guys?
Yeah, so unless they were doing a home burial, then we would take their pet for them. A lot of times we'll have drivers if they're larger, or the veterinarian will. We try to help with that experience as well, using blankets, and we're tucking them in to help them with that part, because that can be really triggering as well.
It absolutely can. What is the process afterward? Is there a follow-up? How long does cremation take? I know that you guys provide some really cool things other than just urns. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, that would be great as well.
The follow-up is also really intentional. We feel that just as what's happening in the appointment is really intimate and sacred work, that needs to carry out through the cremation as well. Death is such a taboo discussion. People have so many questions about what happens to my pet afterwards. How are they treated? And they're afraid to ask. That has been a really interesting growth opportunity for me, because until I worked here, I had never even seen a dead animal outside of roadkill. Honestly, the first couple crematories I went into were not our own, and it was a jarring experience for me. It didn't bring me the feelings that I wanted to feel in a space. And so I knew we had to do something different. We had to have a space where, first of all, we're both mothers and working moms. And so when we leased that space, we both had 4-year-olds. I needed it to be a space where my 4-year-old could run through the crematory and not be scarred and horrified. I'm very proud to say we've done that. We have a facility that is beautiful. When you can set guidelines and expectations about how every single pet should be treated, this is someone's sacred family member, and then hiring the staff that believe in that as well. It's really amazing to watch. Every animal that comes back to our facility is carried as if the owner was there. There's a real value to the work that is being done in there, and respect to every single pet that is in there. So when a pet comes into our facility, they're immediately checked in, and we start with memorial items with a standard individual cremation, which means the family wants ashes back. They're getting a clay paw print and a fur clipping. And then the pet is put into our walk-in unit. So we don't freeze pets before aquamation. They are kept at a cooler temperature, but they're not frozen. And then once we've confirmed memorial items are taken, they do move into the aquamation stage. So they get cremated. Water cremation takes a little bit longer than fire cremation. They're typically in our water cremation machine for about 18 hours. But same with fire cremation, what you're left with at the end is the bone that is remaining. Aquamation is exceedingly gentle. So we get about 20% more bone back compared to fire cremation. It's so gentle that even when you open the machine, I can see a full jaw. I can see a full spine still intact. It truly is a really gentle process. The bones at that point are wet because it's water cremation. So they're dried. And throughout this whole process, from the memorial check-in to the cooler to the machine, every single pet has multiple identifiers that we are checking each step of the way so that we can say without a shadow of a doubt, this was your pet. Once the bones have dried, they get pulverized in what is known in the industry as a cremulator. And it basically takes all the bones and pulverizes them into that ash that we're familiar with. I think most people have seen firewood burn. So we assume if we burn a body, we just have a pile of ash. And that is not what happens. Even in fire cremation, there are bones in our body that fire does not break down. And so they do have to go into a machine to be broken down into that ash that we are more familiar with. From there, it's up to the family. We have a standard amount of urns that we provide. We also have a number of upgraded urns, and we also have all different sorts of artwork. We do a lot of in-house artwork. I have a necklace. It's our Ocean Tides necklace. It looks like sand with water above it. And the sand is actually all of my corgi's ashes that went through our aquamation process. And then our office manager made me a necklace of his ashes. And so we're really trying with every step of the process. I think especially with the cremation, we want to meet people where they want to be met. If you don't want your dog's ashes back and you prefer them spread at sea, there is no judgment for that. Absolutely. We will facilitate any level of memorial items, cremation that we can legally do and make happen. We've had people ask all sorts of questions over the years or ask for custom items, things that are important to them. The beauty of being a family-owned business is we can do that. If we can make it happen, then we will do anything to help any client, any family on their grief process.
I think that's really cool. I have looked at your website and all of the different kinds of options and everything that you have, and you really do have a very unique variety of things. That was what originally drew me to you guys, because I thought, this is so cool because you can get your memorial jewelry and you don't ever have to worry that it's not your pet because it's all done in one place and it's all categorized. I think that's just really neat that you've been able to streamline the process, because it is scary to send your pet's body away and not know if they put multiple dogs in at the same time. Are you actually getting just your dog? And that's all things that are really very valid concerns. Can we talk a little bit more about the aquamation? Because that was the one thing that I had never actually heard of until very recently. And I don't know if that's something that I live in Iowa. I don't even know if that's something that we offer here. So just for my benefit and the listeners, would you talk a little bit about how that works? You know, obviously there's some kind of breakdown in water involved, but other than that, I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my favorite icebreaker to ask people, do you know what water cremation is? Because most people have no idea. And I hadn't heard about it until 5 years ago when Dr. Benson and I started discussing how do we bring cremation in-house and what does that look like? And most states will not allow more fire incinerator permits. So there's just a limited amount of options. Aquamation or water cremation are often used as the same term, but water cremation, essentially, we take 95% water, we add 5% alkali, and that water is heated and then it's very gentle mixing. There is a mixer in the machine. Mixer is honestly a very strong word. If I opened the machine while it was going, it's not going to be like a whirlpool. It's honestly more of a vibration. And so basically what that is doing is causing the molecules to interact with each other and speed up and break down anything organic in the machine. So we have the pets in there. They are separated. They're in stainless steel separation containers. And the water and the alkali go in, and over 18 hours, everything organic breaks down. Everything not organic bones, any surgical metals that are in your pet's body. We've found rocks that dogs have eaten. We've found costume jewelry. We've found clothing. Anything non-organic is going to stay with your pet. Anything organic, all of the muscle, tissue, fur, hair, everything else, it is gone in that process. So just like fire cremation, everything organic burns away in fire cremation. Everything organic in this gets into that process and the bone is left. So both processes, you're ending up with essentially this bones that are turned into ashes. The benefits of water cremation, there's zero EPA emissions. We're not burning fossil fuels. It is essentially like running a dishwasher, and it uses water and it uses electricity. But even the amount of water, one of the machines uses the same amount of water in one day as a family of four. So we're not talking thousands of gallons of water a day that each machine is using. The two machines we have, for example, they can fit 550 pounds per machine. When we're talking about using water, it may take a couple hundred gallons, but we may be able to help, cremate 10 pets in that time. It's a growing industry and people are seeking out those environmental options. It is legal in all 50 states, I believe. I think there are water cremation machines for pets, maybe 47 of those 50 states right now.
That's really cool because not only are you at the forefront of caring and making goodbyes something that is more palatable, I guess is a good word to use, but you're also using technology that is better for the environment on top of it. So I think that's really cool that you have found all of these ways to incorporate goodness into something that is not so great, unfortunately. Really very, very, very cool and very interesting. Thank you for explaining that. What is the strangest thing that you guys have found in the containers?
It's a good question. I think probably the rock, because it was a big rock that was very surprising. We've had some really good costume jewelry. My favorite is also what people ask us to cremate with their pets. So the strangest, and I think my favorite thing that anyone has ever asked us to cremate was a banana. Somebody had a dog that must have really loved bananas and they wrote on that banana and they asked us to cremate with their pet, and it is organic. So we said, sure, why not? People grieve in different ways and they have different requests. And in our industry, there's no weird thing. I mean, I think if you've started the first couple months, you're going to be a little bit taken back by questions. There's no weird question. We're here to help. And I don't want people to feel embarrassed or shamed that they shouldn't even be thinking those things. If you can imagine it, people are asking for it and we have heard it all.
I love that. That's the whole point behind this podcast, was to create a space that was safe for people to talk about the stuff that nobody wants to talk about. And this is one of those topics. So I love that you cremated a banana with this dog. I think that that's wonderful because, like you said, everybody grieves in different ways. And if that was something that helped them process that, that's beautiful. What a gift. I don't know, I'm going to be thinking about that for days now because that's very unique. When you're doing surgeries and you find all kinds of crazy things in dogs' stomachs. I think the craziest thing that we ever pulled out of was a pair of pantyhose from a Shih Tzu. And I was just like, how did that even fit in there? I'm sure that you find an array of things inside. I wouldn't have even thought of that, though. I think that is really cool that you guys provide such an open space for people to talk about these things, because it's hard to have questions like that and feel like, am I weird for asking this? Or is this appropriate? Because it's your pet. Of course it's appropriate. If this is what makes you feel comfortable, then absolutely you should be asking for those accommodations, for those special requests. And if it can be done, you guys can do it. That's awesome. I think that is just such a unique perspective at looking at helping a pet transition.
My favorite thing is when kids send letters.
Oh my gosh. I think you just broke my heart a little bit right there. In your experience, Dr. Benson, do you have a specific euthanasia that really stood out to you? Was there like a really pivotal moment with a client that really stood out?
I had one not that long ago that was a dog, and they used the euthanasia appointment almost, it felt like a reunion. They invited every single person that was a part of this dog's life. There were kids, there were neighbors, there were pet sitters, there were friends, there was an ex-partner, and they were all gathered around. Someone was playing guitar, they had the steak, they had all the favorite food for the dog. And I just was blown away by the beauty in that moment because it really was a celebration of the dog's life. That really spoke to me. And that's when I started thinking more about this death as a beautiful death, where instead of it being traumatic, it's comfort. And I think that particular appointment just was an epiphany for me.
What an incredible gift to be part of that experience. Just hearing you talk about it is making me emotional. So I can't even imagine having to be you and having to be the person that is making everybody say goodbye.
I had to put myself in check multiple times throughout the appointment where I was like, wait, I'm not part of this. I have to do my job right now. I have to make sure that this goes perfectly. I had to really remove myself and remember what my job was.
What a hard job you have. I really commend you for tackling this part of the industry because it's easy to be a veterinarian and to make people happy and to give their dog their annual shots and perform the spay and neuters and all that kind of stuff. But this specific part of our pets' lives is so difficult. It definitely takes a very special person to want beautiful endings for people and their dogs and to be there giving them. So thank you for doing what you do, because I don't think that there are enough doctors out there that are willing to do what you do.
We entered this because we wanted to cure and we wanted to make all of our patients better, but this is definitely another facet that's really important.
What does the future of Pause into Grace look like?
I'm hoping that we'll continue to change the death experience for families so that we change the culture and it's not centered around trauma and it's not centered around regret. Instead, families are able to find comfort that they released a pet from suffering. Those moments were peaceful and comfortable and filled with love, changing that experience. And I think that's what we want to do at its core and bring that to as many families as possible and change the veterinary industry so that becomes more the normal.
I would love it if that was the standard. I fully believe that there should be specialists in everything. And I feel like that's kind of what you are. You are the specialist in end of life experience. And you have found such a beautiful way to give that to people and such a gentle way to give that to people where they feel less guilt, hopefully, and less shameful about it, less burdened by it, because it's such a hard decision to make. I would love to see there be more diversity in the veterinary field as far as that kind of thing, but really see areas where we focus in on specific things to make them easier for people, because death is hard. Broken bones are hard. Nutrition is hard. I think that if we had doctors that were more individualized on those things like we do for people, that treating our pets and caring for them would be a lot more easy if we knew who we could turn to and ask questions and not feel like the doors are closing or they're looking at us like we're weird because we have different expectations than other people.
We definitely are moving towards understanding that there's other resources that are needed. There are now more social workers in veterinary hospitals offering more grief support. I think there has become an awakening that pet death is just as traumatic as a family member's death, and that all the same emotions are the grief process. It's the same. So we need the same resource.
Yes, truly. I think that people who have pets and who are really bonded with their pets and don't just have accessory pets, because there are people that just have accessory pets, but the people that really invest in their dogs and their cats and they're part of the family, they see it from such a different perspective than the people who are out there that are like, it's just a dog. I think that is the worst thing that somebody can say in response to, oh, I lost my dog this week, or this is the 1-year anniversary, or whatever. And somebody's like, this is just a dog. It was just a dog. It blows my mind how inconsiderate people are in that aspect. So I love that you're tying in those resources for people. I personally work with a pet loss grief counselor. She's been on the podcast a couple of times. And I just think that it's such a wonderful resource for people. Normalizing pet death and normalizing the grief involved with pet loss is super important because, like you said, it's just like grieving a human person. You go through the same stages, you go through the same steps. And then on top of that, you have people that don't understand it, and it makes it even more complicated. What you're doing for the community is such a valuable thing. Are there any really big challenges that you guys ever come across? Is there anything that's been a really difficult decision that you've had to go through because of the services that you provide?
One challenge I have is just reminding myself that grief presents itself in different ways. Sometimes it's projection or sometimes it's criticism, and that can be directed at the veterinarian or any of us. And we just have to remember that our intention is always to give the best experience and to offer these families support and to give them a comforting experience. But sometimes it is a little out of our control. Death, sometimes depending on what's going on with a pet, like the disease that they have, whether it's heart failure or something. And there is only so much we can control about what the body does as a pet is passing. There are limitations, and I think that is challenging to me sometimes, and also understanding that it's not about me and not to take that personally, and give families grace and understanding that all of that is part of grief too.
How do you decompress after that?
I work out a lot. I think my kids help me keep perspective too.
Well, and just trying to be kind, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you obviously they're going through something terrible, and now you've become a part of that. And like you said, they may take some of that out on you. And so just trying to remember that it's not actually you, and just continuing to maintain your calm and continue to be kind and move forward is, I'm sure that's hard.
Yeah, a lot of veterinarians, we struggle with that in the industry because we all have hearts on our sleeves and we want to make everyone better and we want to make a difference. And just remembering that you are making a difference and the value of your work and trying to keep that perspective and trying to remember that.
Well, you are making a huge difference. I wish that we had something like what you're providing where I live. I'm almost tempted to just make my way out to California when it becomes time for my little guy. I have two dogs, and one of them is 13 or 14 years old now. I'm right in that stage of anticipatory loss. He's got some heart stuff going on, and he's just starting to have trouble getting around. And going through that is really, really difficult. And trying to figure out what my options are is hard because we just don't have a lot of options, unfortunately. And I really would like to do an in-home euthanasia and not go through another one at the veterinary office again, because I, like you, have experienced hundreds, if not thousands of deaths as a vet tech. And it's not something that I want for myself. It's not something that I want for other people. So I hope that more veterinarians are inspired by what you are doing and take steps to create environments like what you're creating for people.
Yeah, and I think even in the veterinary hospital, because unfortunately not every time you may not be able to have the goodbye at home. So if it is in a veterinary office, what can we do differently there to give a little bit of the same comfort? Asking for a pain relaxation medication injection before the last injection. Even to have some tips for families so that they can be their own advocate for their pet. So asking for that just helps a more gradual, gentle transition. Can help a dog or cat's anxiety for even being there. It allows you more time to process. Asking for quiet room, asking to pay for services before the euthanasia. So I think even if you have to go to the vet office, here are some things and ways you can be your own advocate.
Yeah, no, I think that that's really, really important. And I think that that is probably another area that we don't talk about. You should advocate for yourself and your pet's death too. That is not an abnormal thing to think about or talk about. And if you reach out to your vet's office and you're not getting help, then you call Pause into Grace and have them walk you through it. Or you find a pet loss grief counselor like Beth and you reach out and you ask these questions so that you feel more confident and more comfortable in these situations. We are just about out of time, so I would like to know what you ladies would like to leave the listeners with today.
I would like to leave our listeners with the idea of continuing to ask the weird things. Ask the things that you don't feel comfortable or that you might feel is not appropriate to be asking. Google is your friend. There are a ton of resources out there. We've honestly spent the last 3 years with our marketing budget writing articles and putting as much resources as we can online. But there are home euthanasia vets all over the country. And so if you're not in San Diego and you have a pet that is starting to get of age and you have questions that you're not either finding the answers to online or your vet isn't able to help, my encouragement would be to call and ask those questions and have those hard conversations. There's no shame in crying. We have people cry on the phone to us every single day. There's no shame in any weird question, any type of tail preservation, paw preservation. Your dog's already been buried and you want it cremated now. These are things that we deal with every single day, and we're not going to balk at that. If you're not finding those answers by your local practitioners, your local home euthanasia people, please give us a call. We're happy to help guide people. There's nothing to be uncomfortable or ashamed about. This is what happens to all of us. This is everyone's reality, death and taxes. This is part of that's unavoidable, and not talking about it doesn't make it not happen. So let's talk about it so that we know how to deal with it when it comes, when our kids deal with it. We know how to do so in a healthy space that's not going to be traumatic, but that really will be that beautiful goodbye that we want.
Absolutely love that.
That is difficult, but I think we don't need to fear the process. Know that you have control. Your dog or your cat has cancer or kidney failure or something like that. Be thinking about what you want that experience to be. It can be a release of suffering. People have kids and they don't want them to be there because it might be traumatic. It may be their first experience with death. So let's create an experience that is emotionally healthy and supportive and sets them up for success for the rest of their life. We can create comfort, security, and we can change that experience and for them. And it can be a time where the family comes together and there's love, and that's what I see in these appointments. And it really restored my faith in humanity and families because I saw them coming together with love and saw the best in people at their worst time.
Absolutely. I think that you guys are on a path that is going to be life-altering for so many people and the future generations to come, because we are teaching lessons that are super important to children who are younger, and they're able to move on and move forward into life with healthy experiences and death. I just think that's so wonderful that you guys can create that.
Thank you. That's the goal.
But yeah, that's the hope, right?
That is the hope. All right. Well, you guys, I know this was a rough episode. Death is always a hard one to talk about, but if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you want to know more about aquamation, or you just want to ask the weird questions, please get into contact with Dr. Benson or Courtney from Pause into Grace, or reach out to me so I can put you in contact with them myself. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next time on Straight Up Dog Talk. Straight Up Dog Talk was created by Emily Breslin. It is edited and produced under the supervision of Straight Up Dog Talk, LLC, and Emily Breslin. If you're enjoying this podcast, follow or subscribe and be sure you don't miss an episode. And leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Looking for more honest and relatable dog content? Check out our sister show, Unpacked, with Jerry Sheriff and Madison Simpson. Thanks for listening to Straight Up Dog Talk. See you next week.